Hello and welcome to the UPSC Mains PYQ series, the live answering UPSC Mains PYQ series by Shikara Academy. In this series, we are discussing all the UPSC GS Mains questions asked by UPSC over the past years. Now, in this session, we will be discussing UPSC 2024, UPSC Mains 2024 GS Paper 3, question number 11 to 15. So let's start with our discussion. Now, this question number 11, it states that discuss the merits and demerits of the four labor codes in the context of labor market reforms in India. What has been the progress so far in this regard? A 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of economic development, and the topic is Indian economy and issues relating to employment, because these labor codes comes under the topic of employment only. Now, the question is asking us three things, that is the merits of the four labor codes, the demerits of the four labor codes, and what's the progress so far. So, 5 plus 5 plus 5 marks equals 15 marks. So, it is asking three things for 5 marks each. Now, the approach that we'll be taking in introduction, we will be describing the four labor codes. So, there are four labor codes. We will name them and we'll write what's the need of these labor codes or what these labor codes aim to achieve. Then in body, we address the demand of the question by writing the merits of the four labor codes, the demerits of the four labor codes, and what's the progress that we have made till now. Then in conclusion, we will be summarizing the answer and write a forward-looking conclusion or way forward. Now starting with introduction. Now to simplify and modernize India's complex labor laws. India's labor laws were very complex before the introduction of these labor codes. The government of India consolidated the 29 existing legislations into the four labor codes. Now, it all started in the year 2019. Prior to 2019, pre-2019, there were 29 different kind of legislations regarding the labor laws in India. The government of India, in order to achieve its mantra of minimum government, maximum governance, so the government decided to end with these all existing legislations and came up with these four labor codes. The four labor codes are the Code on Wages, which was released in 2019, the Code on Industrial Relations, that is Industrial Relation Code 2020, Code on Social Security 2020, and the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code that was also introduced in 2020. So it's been 5 years. It's been 5 years since these codes have been launched. Now, these codes were aimed to balance workers' welfare with the industry-friendly reforms. So, what it aims to balance? The welfare of the workers and the industry-friendly reforms. Now, the merits of these four labor codes, when we write about the body, first is the simplification of law. So, it rationalizes 29 laws into four codes, reducing the compliance burden. Okay, so this is minimum government and maximum governance. Second is the formalization of workforce. It expands social security gig, platform, and unorganized workers. Okay, it expands the social security to gig workers, to unorganized sector workers. Third is the ease of doing business because it is providing for industrial reforms and the labor reforms. So it provides a uniform definition of wages and digitization of records, ultimately leading to ease of doing business. Then is the flexibility to employers. Now it allows the firms to, with up to 300 workers, to retrench without the prior government approval. Okay. Finally, it is aimed at worker welfare. The merit is worker welfare. It introduces the floor wages, that is the minimum wages, the mandatory appointment letters that has to be provided to the workers, and the better safety standards. Then talking about demerits of these labor codes, first is the reduced worker protection. So even though they were targeted for workers, but they somehow have reduced the worker protection because the higher retrenchment threshold weakens the job security. Now the companies, to 300 members, they have the freedom. It allows the firms to retrench without prior government approval. So in a way, it has weakened the job security for the workers. Second is the implementation challenges. So states have to frame rules leading to delays and inconsistencies. Okay, so every state government has to frame certain rules, some certain industrial and labor rules, and this has led to implementation challenges or implementation delays. Third is the exclusion of the informal sector. Now, despite the provisions of the informal sector being or the introduced in these codes, the majority of informal workers may remain outside the effective coverage of these codes. Fourth is the trade union concerns. There are fear of dilution of collective bargaining rights. So till now, the trade unions have been a very strong political or a very strong economic or social body of the trade workers. But with the introduction of these or with the implementation of these labor codes, there is a fear that the power, the collective bargaining power that these trade unions give to the workers or that will dilute. Finally, is the ambiguity in gig worker benefits. Now, the gig workers is one thing. UPSC has been asking repeated questions about the gig workers. So, the lack of clarity on funding and social security of gig and platform worker is another demerit of the labor codes. Now, what progress we have made till now? First is the codes are enacted but are not implemented. So all these four codes has been passed by the parliament. It's been a few years that these codes have been passed, but yet to be enforced due to pending rules from the state. So the states have not come up with the rules, so there has been a delay in implementation. That has been a demerit. Second is the partial adoption. Some states have drafted rules, but nationwide rollout remains delayed. Third is the industry concerns. So businesses they seek clarity on wage definitions and compliance processes before implementation. So there has been some issues regarding on the business side of things and some issues regarding the government side of things, that is the state government. So in conclusion, we can write that the four labor codes mark a landmark reform in India's labor market, seeking to balance flexibility and protection. Now, what it seeks to balance? The flexibility as well as the protection of the workers' rights. The delays in implementation and concerns over work safety need to be addressed. Effective execution with stakeholder consultation is essential to ensure that these reforms drive both economic growth and social justice. Now, this is the way forward line or a forward looking line. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 12. What is the need for expanding the regional air connectivity in India? In this context, discuss the government's UDAN scheme and its achievements. It is also a 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Now, it is asking us three things that we have to discuss or we have to give the reasons why there is a need to expand the regional air connectivity in India. In the second half of the answer, we have to discuss the government's UDAN schemes, that is its features, and then we have to write the achievements of the UDAN scheme. Mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of economic development, and the topic is mainly infrastructure, and in infrastructure, it is mainly focusing on airports and air connectivity. Now, for the approach, in introduction, we will be describing the air connectivity in India, the status of air connectivity in India, and the UDAN scheme. We will be describing in short about the UDAN scheme. Then in body, we address the demand of question by writing the need for expanding regional air connectivity and the features of UDAN scheme. Thirdly, the achievements of UDAN scheme. And then in conclusion, we will be summarizing our entire answer. Now, starting with the introduction, the air connectivity plays a crucial role in promoting the economic growth, regional balance, and social integration. Okay. In India, despite a rapidly growing aviation sector, large parts of tier 2 and tier 3 cities remained unconnected. Okay. In India, it is of no doubt that India's aviation sector is rising, but it is mainly concentrated towards the large cities, in the large cities or in the metropolitan cities. Okay, and the tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India, the small towns, the small cities, they remain somewhat unconnected. Okay, now to address this issue, in 2016 the government of India has come up with to address this. The government launched the Udan scheme, that is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik. Okay, Aam Nagrik means the common man. It was launched in 2016 under the National Civil Aviation Policy. Now, writing the body, we will be describing what is the need for expanding regional connectivity in India. The first is the regional development. The regional air connectivity enhances the connectivity to smaller cities and remote areas and ensuring the balanced growth. Second is the economic growth. First is the regional development. Second is the economic growth. The air connectivity boosts trade, tourism, investment opportunities in the underserved regions. Third is the accessibility, and it provides an affordable air travel to common citizens, linking rural as well as the urban areas. Fourth is the strategic importance. So now it improves connectivity to border areas and islands, aiding the national security and integration. So if we develop more and more airstrips or more and more airports in the border areas or islands or in the remote islands of the country or in the smaller islands of the country, then it can also be used for military or strategic purposes. Finally, is the decongestion of metros. That is one of the most important points. The regional air connectivity encourages development in regional airports, reducing the burden on major hubs. So the major hubs like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, uh, Chennai. So these are the cities and their airports. There is very much a high congestion is there. So in order to reduce the burden in the congestion on in these large airports, if we promote regional air connectivity, the congestion or the burden on these large cities airports will reduce. Then we discuss the Udan scheme, it features. So the number one feature is the affordable fares because it is for the Aam Nagrik, that is the common man. It caps the ticket prices to rupees 2500 for 1 hour flights. Second is the viability gap funding. The government provides the subsidies. Now, the important feature of this Udan scheme is the subsidies or the viability gap funding that the government provides to airlines operating on the unprofitable regional routes. So, what happens is in tier 2, tier 3 cities, the regional connectivity, there is not much demand in such areas. So, if there is not much demand, okay, it is very difficult for the airlines to generate profit in such routes. So, even though these routes are unprofitable, okay, the gap or the government is providing subsidies to fulfill that gap. Okay. Third is the infrastructure support. That is the revival of unserved or underserved airports in the country. Fourth is the public-private partnerships. It involves collaboration between center, states, and the private operators. Finally, is the spatial focus. It includes priority for Northeast, the hilly states, as well as the islands, because it can also have the strategic significance. Finally, we discuss the achievements of Udan scheme. First is the enhanced connectivity. Over 500 routes awarded and more than 70 airports have been operationalized under this scheme. Second is the boost to regional growth. It improves access for businesses, tourism, and healthcare. Third is the employment generation because the aviation sector is one such industry which generates a huge employment. Okay, so if like you can see, one airline employs thousands of workers. In one airport, you can see at different levels, thousands of workers or hundreds of workers are being employed. So the growth on in aviation services and allied industries. Finally, inclusivity, it enables affordable air travel for citizens from the smaller towns. So it pushes for inclusivity for air travel. In conclusion, we can summarize the answer that we have written by writing that the Udan scheme has significantly advanced the vision of sub ude, sub jude. That is, everyone should fly and everyone should connect by making air travel more affordable and inclusive. So what it has made air travel more affordable, more inclusive. While challenges remain in sustainability, okay, there are economic sustainability challenges, okay, sustainability of the routes and infrastructure gaps in the smaller airports. The scheme has laid a strong foundation for the balanced regional development through the aviation connectivity. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 13. It is, what are the major challenges faced by Indian irrigation system in recent times? State the measures taken by the government for efficient irrigation management. Now, it is a 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Now, this question predominantly is asking us two things. That is, the challenges faced by Indian irrigation system in recent times, and what government efforts or measures are taken by the government to provide for efficient irrigation management. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of economic and development. That is mainly from the theme of agriculture, and the topic is irrigation. Now, the approach that we'll be taking in introduction, we describe irrigation in the Indian agriculture, like what's the status of irrigation in Indian agriculture. Then in body, we write the major challenges in the Indian irrigation system. That is the main demand of the question, and the government measures for efficient irrigation management. So the demand of the question is addressed in the body. Then in finally conclusion, we summarize and provide a way forward or the forward-looking conclusion. Starting with introduction, agriculture in India is heavily dependent on irrigation. Okay, as nearly 52% of the net sown area still relies on monsoon rains. So in India, predominantly we have the rain-fed agriculture. Okay, around 52% of the net sown area or the net agriculture area in the country, it is relying on the monsoon rains because there is no proper irrigation development in such areas. In recent decades, though, multiple challenges have emerged in ensuring sustainable and equitable irrigation. The government has introduced several measures to improve efficiency and resilience of irrigation systems. Okay, so in this introduction, we have written or we have shown to the examiner that what we have written in this answer or what he or she can expect in this answer. In the answer, in the body of the answer, we write the major challenges in Indian irrigation system. First is the over dependence on groundwater. Over 60% of irrigation comes from the groundwater, leading to the depletion of groundwater in states like Punjab, Haryana, and Gujarat. Okay, so there is a heavy reliance on the groundwater, and there is a rampant extraction of the groundwater for irrigation purposes. Second is the inefficiency in canal system. The high convenience losses due to seepage, siltation, and poor maintenance. Because of the poor maintenance and siltation of these canals, so there is a very high inefficiency in the canal systems. Third is the regional imbalances. So Eastern India has abundant water resources but low irrigation coverage. Okay, while the northwestern India faces overexploitation. Now, the northwestern area, particularly the state of Punjab and Haryana, there is overexploitation of the groundwater resources. Now, the eastern part of the country, especially the state of Bihar, West Bengal, Odisha, Assam, they are rich in water resources because they have a very fine network, very good network of the rivers and its tributaries are there. But the infrastructure for irrigation is not well developed in these states. Fourth is the low water use efficiency. So in India, traditionally we follow the flood irrigation, which wastes a large quantities of water. So what we do is we just flood the entire field with the water that we have extracted from the ground or water which we have given it through the canal. We flood the entire field, and this is a highly inefficient way to flood a field because 90%, more than 90% of the water is wasted. Then is the climate change impact. There are erratic rainfalls because of the climate change. Frequent droughts and floods disrupt the irrigation planning. So there has been a shift also. Certain shifts are seen in the monsoon patterns, and monsoon is becoming very irregular. Okay, so all this is a result of the climate change. Then is the energy water nexus. Free or subsidized electricity encourages the over pumping of groundwater. So every state government in India, like it because of the maybe vote politics or something like that, they encourage or they provide highly subsidized or free electricity to the farmers. And what the farmers do, especially in the states of Punjab and Haryana or the Western UP, this green revolution belt, they extract more and more water because of this free electricity or the subsidized electricity. Then there are institutional issues lack of participatory irrigation management, and weak water governance. Then what we discuss is the what government has done. The government's measures to for the efficient irrigation management. The most important is the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. It focuses on Har Khet Ko Pani, that is water to every field, and improving the water use efficiency through per drop more crop. So these two are the key phrases that you should be incorporating in your answer. Second is the focus on micro irrigation. The government is providing subsidy support for drip irrigation and sprinkler system to reduce the wastage of water, because the drip irrigation and sprinkler system are way more effective, are way more efficient than the flood irrigation system. Then is the National Water Mission, which promotes the efficient water use and water conservation. Then is the Command Area Development Program, which aims for the modernization of canal networks and distribution efficiency. Then is the groundwater management, that is Atal Bhujal Yojana for community-led sustainable water use. The technology adoption, use of satellite mapping, GIS, and digital monitoring for the irrigation. So what we are using this remote sensing or satellite mapping in order to map the groundwater or map the different canals and different water resources. Then there are institutional reforms, encouraging water users association for participatory management. Finally, in conclusion, we write India's irrigation system faces serious challenges of over extraction, inefficiency, and regional disparity. Okay, we have written about the challenges. And we write about government initiatives like Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, micro irrigation, and groundwater management schemes are crucial for achieving sustainable irrigation. So, till now, we have summarized the answer. The first part of the conclusion is the summarizing line. When the second line or the second part of the conclusion will be a forward looking line, that is, the long term water security requires. What it requires is a shift towards conservation, technology driven solutions, and participatory water governance. And this is will be the way forward. Moving on to the 14th question, the next question, that is elucidate the importance of buffer stocks for stabilizing agriculture prices in India. What are the challenges associated with the storage of buffer stocks? Discuss. It is also a 15-mark question that we have to answer in 250 words. Now, mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the subject of economic development, and the topic is issues of buffer stocks and food security. Now, it is asking us two things. This question, the question is demanding us to write about two things. That is the importance of buffer stocks in stabilizing the agriculture prices in India. Second is the challenges that are associated with this buffer stock storage. So, in introduction, we will be describing the buffer stocks. And then in body, we will be addressing the demand of question, that is writing about the importance of buffer stocks and challenges in storage of the buffer stocks. Then in conclusion, we will be writing a way forward or a forward-looking line. Starting with the introduction, agriculture in India is highly vulnerable to fluctuations in production and prices due to monsoon dependence and market volatility. Now, to ensure the price stability and food security, the government maintains buffer stocks and food grains, primarily wheat and rice, managed by the Food Corporation of India. So, who manages the buffer stocks? That is the Food Corporation of India. And the buffer stocks primarily comprises of the two grains, that is wheat as well as rice. Now, what is the importance of these buffer stocks? Why we store the buffer stocks? First is the price stabilization. Now, it releases food grains during the scarcity. So, Food Corporation of India releases the food grains during scarcity to check the inflation and procures during the surplus to prevent the price crashes. Now, seeing the agricultural or the cropping calendar of the year. So, during the harvesting months or at a particular point in the year, there is a surplus of the food grains in the market. So the price, because of the demand supply ratio or the demand supply game, the prices might crash. Now, in order to prevent such price crashes, in order to secure the livelihood of the farmer, okay, to make sure that the farmer generates profit. So, in order to prevent the price crashes, the government procures a huge amount of these food grains and stores them as a buffer stocks. And during the scarcity months, okay, when the production is hit by some factors, or there is a more and more demand in the market, then the government releases these food grains in order to check the food inflation. Se- Second is the food security. Now it ensures the regular supply of food grains under the public distribution system and the schemes like the National Food Security Act. Third is the farmer welfare. The procurement at the minimum support price protects farmers from the market fluctuation. So we have to protect the farmers' welfare or the farmers' interest, as well as we have to ensure the food security to our population. Fourth is the emergency relief. It supplies during droughts, floods, and other calamities. Then is the nutritional security. It supports welfare programs like the midday meals and the ICDS. Finally, there are strategic reserves. It acts as a safeguard against the global supply chain disruptions as well as the crisis, as we have seen during the case of COVID. Now, what are the challenges in this storage of buffer stock? First, in India, we have the inadequate storage capacity. So, large quantities stored in open spaces which are prone to wastage. So, we do not have dedicated or made silos or the warehouses. A lot of this storage is held in open spaces, which is making it prone to wastage and rotting and other things. Then it is high carrying costs. Escalating expenses on storage, transportation, and maintenance burden the fiscal resources. So there has been a increasing costs involved associated with the storage of these food grains, the transportation of these food grains, and the maintenance of these buffer stocks. Then there are leaks and corruption, diversion of grains from procurement and distribution networks to the open market. Okay, so instead of the PDS system, the grains are sold in the open market. Then there is quality deterioration because of the poor storage infrastructure leads to rotting, pest infestation, and loss of nutritional value. Then there are regional imbalances. Excessive procurement from few states because the states like Punjab and Haryana, there is a more or heavy production. Okay, there is a surplus production. Okay, and this causes the grain glut while the eastern states remain underutilized. Okay, so some states there is more, they generate more surplus than their demand, and some states that the supply is not up to the demand. Then there is environmental concerns, that is high procurement of water intensive crops like paddy affects the sustainability. Now we all know that the rice or paddy is a very water intensive crop, and the states the soil in the states like Punjab and Haryana, the soil is not suitable for the cultivation of this paddy crop. But still, these states are involved. The farmers of these states, they grow a huge amount of paddy. Okay, because they know that the government will incentivize them by providing them the MSP. Okay, so the high procurement of the water intensive crops by the government, it affects the sustainability. So the overproduction of these water crops, these water intensive crops like rice in the states of Punjab, Haryana, and Western UP, it has further brought down the groundwater. Finally, we write the conclusion that buffer stocks play a critical role in stabilizing the agricultural prices and ensuring food security in India. That is the role of buffer stocks. However, challenges like storage losses, high costs, and inefficiencies need urgent reforms. So this is the summary of the answer. Then we write a way forward. That is, measures such as modern silos, the decentralized procurement, as well as the crop diversification and technology enabled monitoring can make buffer stock management more efficient and sustainable. So, in the conclusion, we have provided the solution. Moving on to the last question, that is question number 15. The world is facing an acute shortage of clean and safe fresh water. Now, this is an introductory statement. Okay, this is not a question, that this is just an introductory statement in the question. Now, these introductory statements are to be dealt in the introduction of the answer itself. Then, what are the alternative technologies which can solve this crisis? Okay, what crisis? The acute shortage of clean and fresh water. This is the crisis. Like, what alternative technologies can solve this? We have to briefly discuss any three such technologies, citing their key merits as well as demerits. So, In here, we have to write about three alternative technologies, their merits and demerits. So structure of answer should be like this. Mapping it with the syllabus, we can see that it has been asked from the overlapping subjects like environment and the use of technology in the environment, especially for the conservation of water resources. How we can deploy technology for conservation of water resources. Now, in approach or the structure of the answer should be like, in introduction, we will be describing the water crisis and role of alternative technologies in the dealing with the water crisis. Then in the body, we write about the different alternative technologies. We are asked to write about three different alternative technologies. So we'll write three technologies and discuss their merits and demerits. Then in conclusion, we will be summarizing the answer and write a forward-looking conclusion. Starting with the introduction, the world is facing an acute water crisis. Nearly 2 billion people lacking access to safe drinking water according to UN 2023 data. Now, in this line, we have dealt with the introductory line that was given in the question. Then we discuss the climate change, population growth, and unsustainable use of water resources are worsening the problem. Okay, the factors that are worsening this climate crisis or this water crisis. Then, alternative water technologies provide innovative solutions to ensure availability of clean and safe fresh water. Then we write about three different alternative technology. The first technology is the desalination technology. Okay, its merits are it converts the abundant seawater into fresh water. Okay, so desalination technology involves converting the saline water into fresh water, and we know that the oceans or the seas they contain a huge amount. So around 3/4 of the earth is covered with oceans, but the water in the oceans we cannot use them because it is not a fresh water, it is a saline seawater. Now, desalination technology involves converting this seawater or saline water into fresh water. Okay, and it provides a reliable supply because there is abundant supply, especially for coastal and the arid regions. It reduces the dependence on rainfall and rivers. Okay, then the demerits, it is high energy consumption. So, very high energy is used, and the operational costs are very high. The environmental concerns due to brine disposable into the ocean. So, what is the brine? So, brine is the thick concentration of the saline, or it is the concentrated saline mixture or the leftover water that is that we are getting after the desalination. Okay, and what the industry do, they release this brine into the oceans, which further raises the environmental concerns. Then there is limited accessibility to the low income countries because the operational costs and the energy consumption is really high. So the low income countries, they cannot afford this desalination technology. The second technology is the rainwater harvesting. This is an alternative technology. Merits are that it is very simple, it is low cost and community friendly technology. Okay, here we are harvesting the rainwater that is falling. Okay, it reduces dependence on groundwater and promotes the groundwater recharge. So all the rain that is falling, what we are doing is we are just harvesting that entire, and we are making the way for that rainwater to recharge the groundwater table. Then it helps in drought prone areas and the urban water management. The demerits are that it is season dependence. Okay, because in India, particularly in India, we receive most of the rainfall during the months of monsoon. Okay, and this is limited during the dry months. So out of around, it is for 4 to 5 months that we are getting rainfalls in India, and other months are relatively dry months. It requires proper maintenance and water quality management. Third is the inadequate storage infrastructure in many regions. The third such alternative technology is the wastewater recycling and reuse. So the wastewater that we are generating in industries or in the households, how we can recycle and reuse that water. So merits are that it converts the municipal as well as industrial wastewater into the usable water. Second is that it reduces pollution and conserves the fresh water resources. Third is it is useful in agriculture, industry, and even potable use with advanced treatment. Okay, even though it is not of potable use. Okay, so many people they have apprehensions of drinking this recycled water. But that recycled water can be used in industry. That recycled water can easily be like used in agriculture for irrigation of the crops. The demerits that is that it has high initial investment in treatment plants. Okay, so the recycling plants, they have high initial investment cost is involved. Then there is public reluctance due to the psychological barriers regarding the recycled water. So already discussed, the public, they have certain apprehensions or they are reluctant because of the psychological barriers regarding the portability of this recycled water. Then there is a need for more strict monitoring for the safety and quality. Okay, for the recycled water, we have to ensure that the quality of water is up to the mark, that we can use it in industries, we can use it in agriculture, or at the end we can use it for the potable purposes or for the drinking purposes. Then finally, in conclusion, we write that the technologies like desalination, rainwater harvesting, and wastewater recycling hold immense potential to address the freshwater crisis. Then we write each has unique advantages and challenges, but a hybrid approach combining localized rainwater harvesting with advanced large scale technologies can ensure sustainable water security for the future generation. So, the bottom line is that we have to use the localized rainwater harvesting along with this large scale technology such as desalination for the coastal areas, or what we can do is we can do go for the wastewater recycle. Now the PDF of these model answers will be available to you on Shikara Academy